Happy Mother's Day.
Thank
And we have a plant for mothers to take home out in the entryway there. And you could take a mug too if you want, but the mugs were intended for the graduates who may or may not be here at this point. But if you're graduating, take a mug. You've got a choice of whichever one. There's also like cups, like cold cup things. We've done coffee mugs for so long. Maybe there's some people who maybe don't drink coffee, and so we should, consider having something else. So feel free to take one of those. And if you're a student, maybe, and you've got a roommate who's graduating and they don't come through or whatever, feel free to give one for them, just as a gift. So I want to take some time today to thank and celebrate all the mothers out there who do so much day in and day out. Some of you are empty nesters, like we are, and we're not continuing to do that stuff, but it's stuff that had been done. Whether it's comforting sick children or providing some emotional support, teaching, transporting, once you get into that stage when the kids are in their travel teams or whatever, or music lessons, you're just in transportation mode. Just being there to listen. The mothers play an essential role in our lives, so I'd like to have a little round of applause here for the mothers. And while we rejoice in celebrating mothers, I also want to bring up that it can be a sad time for some, for those who've lost a mother, for mothers who have lost children. And so we want to keep that, be sensitive to that. My children were 13, 15, and 21 when Nancy died. The youngest was still in elementary school, and we had to deal with the mother-daughter lunches, and in our class we're making a gift for mother this week, and even in church, making a gift for mother, and those were sort of emotional times. We had to process a bit with her. So our hearts go out to those who have mixed emotions, and we just want to keep that in mind. The nice thing is that in Christ we have the hope of being reunited again.
Yes.
Amen.
I am not going to unpack a lot of scripture today. I want to leave time to hear stories of godly mothers and how God has worked in the life of mothers. And so you can think about that while I'm going on and sharing. Just an opportunity for you to share about your mother, or about your experience as a mother, whatever comes to your heart. As parents, the Bible encourages us to train children in faith and discipline. Sounds a lot like discipleship. But most of it comes as general guidelines rather than specific methodology. Proverbs says, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Training. Training in what? Faith, certainly. Life. There's all kinds of life things we can train our children in. Maybe we even train them in a trade. Teach them how to swing a hammer or take care of an animal or something. But training, being intentional to direct the child's education and behavior. We're quick to teach manners because we don't want the kids to embarrass us when we go out. We're quick to teach, but are we as quick to teach prayer, faith, hope? To teach and demonstrate these things. There's a saying that says more is caught than taught. And while that's true, well, I'm not sure that's true. It's at least a good thing to keep in mind that the parent needs to demonstrate what they're teaching the child, because if you're not doing it, they're going to see the hypocrisy in that. But I think it's an incomplete statement. If we don't teach the children, if we don't explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, when they see us do things, they won't understand And if it's not taught, what is caught can be just as easily released. As one man puts it in faith, you can easily be talked out of your faith if you were never talked into it. And that brings us to the value of discipline. Again in Proverbs, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Now, some of the problems have quirky endings like this. I mean, but wouldn't it bring shame to the father too, or whatever? And it doesn't mean that the father doesn't care. What it does mean is it does tell us that there's a need for discipline in training. And it doesn't just affect the child, but it affects the parents. It can affect the community that you're in when the discipline is left out. The next few verses specifically mention the father as being part of that discipline. I think that's possibly because the father is often the enforcer. I know I was in our family, and my dad was when I was growing up. But discipline is needed from both parents. Hebrews 12:9 through 10. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. God disciplines us to build us up and to improve us. I wish I had more specific guidelines on discipline when I was raising my kids. Eventually, I read some books and talked to parents. When I asked my dad about it, he said, "Oh, it just comes natural." And I'm like, what comes natural is a 2x4 upside the head. I think I need something else. And children and circumstances are so varied. How you discipline one child is not going to be how you discipline one of the others, even in the same family. And it's hard to know. It's also tiring to be consistent, and consistency is important. You're already tired from work, and you let down and give in. And so we do what seems best and what we can do at the time, and pray for God to fill in the rest. Discipline also comes with a warning in the scripture. Don't overdo it, like that 2x4. Anyway, Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And Colossians 3, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. And I've met a few of those kids over the years who are just discouraged. They can never satisfy their father, never feel like they measured up. And so these are real things to be aware of. There's been a lot, I mentioned the 2x4, there's been a lot more talk about abuse in disciplining. And since when I was a child, there's a lot more talk about it now. My third grade teacher had a paddle she was not afraid to use. There's no way you would see that in school anymore. And I remember once when Kathy was maybe in third grade, she'd forgotten some homework. And she said to her teacher, "My dad's going to beat me." Well, fortunately, Kathy was the fourth one through the school system. We were pretty well known in the elementary school. And the teacher knew that wasn't going to be the case. But she called me up and talked to me and said, you need to talk to your daughter because that's not a good thing to be saying in our current public school system. So the experience of good parental discipline helps us accept and respond to God's discipline. Exactly what to do, how much to do, when to do it, that's up to us to discern. And while I didn't realize this or think about it when I was raising the kids, I wish I had, and I'm going to pass this on to you, to those of you with younger children. Pray. Even in the midst of the angst of whatever's going on, stop and say a little prayer, pause, just do something to touch base with God and help you with that discernment.
Yes.
And it can go a long way to get you to respond well instead of reacting poorly. The discipline and training is a shared responsibility, the mother and the father, training in family behavior, social behavior, in faith, mothers and fathers training up the child. I also want to take a look at a couple of Bible stories specifically dealing with mothers and what they may tell us about it. In Matthew 15, we have a Gentile mother so concerned with her child that she boldly confronts Jesus, who is a Jew. She cried out, "Have mercy on me, son of David." So she's acknowledging, A, he's Jewish, and B, probably the Messiah. She's recognizing that. "My daughter is oppressed by a demon." The disciples begged him to send her away because she keeps bothering them and following them. And Jesus says to her, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." It is not right to take the child's bread and throw it to the dogs. That seems like a harsh statement to me, but he's got a point to be made here. "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat crumbs that fall from the master's table." "Dear woman, your faith is great, your request is granted." And her daughter was healed instantly. Her tenacity and her faith were rewarded as Jesus healed the daughter. We also have mothers who went to some extremes to promote their children over others. I'm not sure these are good examples to follow, but they do represent what a mother will go to, the lengths a mother will go to support her children. In Matthew 20, the mother of James and John asked Jesus to promote her sons to sit at the right hand and his right and left hand when his kingdom comes, which she likely expected to be in their lifetime in Jerusalem. And she's doing this in front of the other disciples are seeing what's going on. It's like, whoa, what's going on? But this probably isn't a good idea to do, but her desire was for them to be successful. And in Genesis 27, Rebekah encouraged and helped her favored son, Jacob, deceive his father, her husband, so Jacob could receive the father's blessing over the firstborn. When you read that story, there's a lot of deception and lying going on there. So I don't consider that a good thing to be emulating, but it shows what a mother will go through to promote her children. Finally, I want to offer hope for the effect of your good influence. We find Paul writing about Timothy's faith influenced by the mothers in his life. In 2 Timothy 1:5, "I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwells first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells as well in you." The influence that the mother has and the grandmother can have, and in some cases great-grandmothers, which we have with us. As parents, we should be about training and discipline, being an example and an influence, and still trusting God for the outcomes. And I don't want to leave the kids out, because we're all kids still. I'm still a kid. My parents are still around. In 5 passages, Jesus reminds his disciples to honor your father and mother. When asked what was needed to be good, Jesus put it right along with the second great commandment in Matthew 19, "Honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." I mean, he's putting it right there with that love your neighbor passage. That doesn't mean send them a text message, folks, okay? Probably an e-card doesn't even qualify, although at this point you're running the last minute here. Give them a phone call. If your mother's in Korea, too late. They're already on tomorrow. But if you're in South Africa, you still got time to call. Yes, it's getting a little. It is. And thank her for being your mom, but give her a phone call if you can. If they're close, visit, but if you can. So the passage mentioned above and others are in the program. You can use a Bible app to search for some of the stories. I didn't provide references for it. But now I want to share a modern story to encourage mothers and hopefully awaken the fathers. Those of you without children might gain some insight as well into what's involved in parenting. The story is personal because it's part of my story. Some of you have heard some of this at different times, but when our first child, Ben, came along, Nancy left her job at the vet school. And this was in the early 80s, and that was the time when people looked down on mothers who weren't staying in the workforce. This was starting to roll. People were staying in the workforce, and or women were staying in the workforce, I should say. And if you didn't work outside the home, you were somehow not up to par. You may have noticed I said she didn't work outside the home, because I quickly learned that taking care of a child, especially multiple children, is a lot of work. So being just a mom is not being just a mom. It's working within the home instead of outside the home. When she was gone for a week one time, I found out some of the work involved, but I could get away with a lot of stuff for a week. It's not until she joined Jesus that I really understood the phrase, a woman's work is never done. Nancy and I had pretty much siloed our responsibilities. She did the people care. I did the guy stuff. I mowed the lawn. I worked on the car. I worked on the house. You know, I went to work 8 to 5. And I know that's changed some. Sometimes, in fact, my son, my oldest son, is a stay-at-home dad. But it's pretty typical, I think, that happens because, you know, those tend to be our interests. Guys are often into the mechanical things, and women are into the people caring things. And yes, I understand there are shades of that and all, but let's just take that, especially with Nancy and I, that's how it was working out. But I had lots of work to do, but there was always an end to it. Even mowing the lawn, you know, come wintertime, you stop mowing the lawn. Raking leaves takes a couple of weeks and you're done. And fixing the car, whatever, 8 to 5 job. I go to work, I come home, I don't have to think about it. Doesn't mean I don't, but I don't have to. But this isn't true with what goes on around the house. After she passed away, I ran out of clean clothes. The kids ran out of clean clothes. I haven't done laundry in 23 years. It turns out laundry's a consumable. I had no idea. I should say clean clothes is a consumable. You know? Who'd have thought? And it never ends. And it turns out you have to pay attention to colors, bleach, water temperature. I mean, you know, stains. You got to think about that ahead of time. Check pockets. What the heck? Kathy's favorite yellow shirt turned white. My white shirt turned pink. And Ben decided to do his own laundry because it was the only, he didn't want Dad to ruin his clothes. So this is what happened. If I skipped mowing the lawn for 2 weeks, no one cared. They may not even notice. You skip doing laundry for 2 weeks, people notice. One morning, Kathy came to me as we needed to leave for school. I don't have anything to wear. I said, I go into her room, hand her a shirt, and said, here, this is clean. I can't wear that. Why not? It's dorky. You wore it last week. She starts to tear up and says, I can't wear that. Oh boy, the boss said it was dorky. So I'm frustrated, I'm getting angry, and now I'm going to be late for work because of a fashion statement by some 9-year-old on the bus I've never met. Food. I haven't ever cooked anything but pancakes and hamburgers. Not even ramen. Didn't know what that was. The daily eating routine, no matter how full you are, you get hungry again. The most dreaded question of the day became mine to answer. What's for dinner? Initially, we were aided by the church. A group of women got together and made a pile of food. We froze it, and then we could just warm it up. But eventually it ran out. Not only did I have to consider cooking, which I didn't know how to do, I had to have something in the house to cook. I had to buy groceries. What do we eat? How much of it do we eat? Where's the bread at Wegmans? Then there's what kind of bread? My eyes glazed over when I got to the cereal aisle. We're trying to have the kids eat healthy or whatever. It's like, well, with the help of the kids, I got through the first few adventures. And that may have explained why we had a lot of Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms in the house. Then we got home from the store. When I helped Nancy with the groceries, I brought them in the house and sat on the couch and read the paper. After my first solo trip to the store, I brought the groceries in, put them on the counter, and sat on the couch. Of course, it didn't take too long for me to realize that they weren't going to put themselves away. And the kids didn't care that they were on the counter. They could stay there all day. I was reminded of this when I visited my daughter Carissa in Virginia 2 weeks ago. During COVID, she started buying online and using the curbside pickup to get the groceries, and she's just continued to do so, because then she doesn't have to go through all those aisles. I showed pictures of. I offered to pick them up for her. It seemed like a lot of bags for 4 people. While she, mind you, she was putting them away, I asked her how long that would last. She said, about 2 weeks, and then added under her breath, and it never ends. And it never ends. Indeed, there was no online ordering then. Week after week, I was spending 3 to 4 hours in the grocery store. 3 or 4 hours I didn't have time for. I eventually came up with a weekly menu, made a spreadsheet for what we needed. I'm an engineer, made a spreadsheet for what we needed, including toilet paper, which is another consumable item. I figured out how much we needed for everything each month, sorted the items by aisle in Wegmans, and I managed to cut my time down to 2 hours or so once a month.
Wow.
Still, month to month, but improving time-wise. See all that fresh produce sticking up from those bags? I presume. Oh, we gotta go back one. Yeah, all that fresh produce sticking out from those bags. Okay, now you can go forward to I had neither the time or interest or the ability to cook fresh vegetables, so that didn't happen. The produce aisle, no, I'm not going there. Frozen vegetables were my friend, and I got a bag of apples if whatever was on sale. I didn't know what kind they were, couldn't tell you the difference. Anyway, I didn't have time to cook after work. So I set up meals so I could cook on the weekend and put them in the freezer and then warm them up during the week. Anything that could be quickly heated. You know those family-sized frozen lasagnas? They don't thaw out and cook in 20 minutes. It takes hours. We did pizza carry-out that time. And kids were coming home from soccer practice, and I said, "Yeah, we're having lasagna tonight." It's like, get the thing out of the freezer. Oh no, I guess we're not. Anyway, yes, it was an interesting time of learning. Are you hearing me? The laundry, the food, the cleaning, disciple training and caring, it's never done. And mom is usually on the hook for a good part of it. In the end, I learned a lot. I even know what saute means now. God had mercy on me. I was blessed with a helpmate a few years later. Someone who jumped in to become a stepmom in my crazy world. Thank you, Marcia. Now I have some understanding and tremendous respect for the life of single moms and dads. And I am in awe of those who juggle their work, children, and home year after year. God bless you all. Doing the work in the home is not a career path I would have chosen, but it's absolutely necessary. And it is a ministry. It is a God-given thing that will last for generations to come. The impact of it will. And so I pray God's blessing on the work that you're doing.